one day I'm working along, hoo la la, and then I get a 4 p.m. meeting. Go into the meeting. Oh, sorry, you've been let go. Here's like the package. Here's you can sign. We're gonna escort you out. It's kind of like the show getting canceled. You don't expect it, I guess. Like Firefly, but one door closes, another door opens. I really took the opportunity to relax. I was like working out 5 days a week, rekindling with my friends, and then the way that I landed my next role, we work closely with partners, co-creation. We were able to embed our sponsors into a process. People that lead insurance, lead ESG, learn, and then we go through the process together. We had a session with a group of mobile advisors. Someone messaged me, I've been at the bank 15, 20 years. That was the most fun meeting I've had in my life. Everything could go wrong during a workshop. Whiteboarding, tool not working, people aren't showing up. So you have to have a backup plan for a backup plan for a backup plan.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Design Hack podcast. Today we have another special guest for you guys. I hope you guys are liking all the podcasts that are coming out recently, and we have a bunch more exciting ones coming out soon. But today we have a special guest with us, Andy, who has worked across various industries and currently is working as a UX designer at TD Bank. And we're going to talk about his journey, how he got to where he is, and a lot of power packed insights during this. An hour, almost an hour long conversation that we will have. So let's see where it goes and let me get him on the stage. Hey, Andy, really nice to have you today.
Lovely to be here.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Pretty good, not too shabby. It's been a quite a journey in terms of weather here in Toronto, so that's
True.
it's keeping it interesting. It's colder
No,
than we
no,
thought today.
no, fully agreed. I think I wasn't expecting like a snow kind of shower today, and I was like, out of
Hmm.
nowhere it came out. Like that's
I
fine.
know.
But yeah, let's kind of start with a bit of your introduction, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So just go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So Andy, I'm currently a UX designer on TD Insurance. I help with their digital servicing platform. So, when people go and ask, oh, how could I add a new car to my insurance, or how could I add a new driver? So that's the platform that I'm supporting right now. Previously, I was at CIBC on the Enterprise Innovation team, doing more like internal consulting across different lines of businesses, whether it be wealth, personal banking, you know, anti-money laundering. I've been across different, I guess, subjects. Before that, I was fortunate enough to have co-ops in different fields. I worked for the Ontario Digital Service. I worked for a startup called Arctic Wolf, as well as a software agency called Focus 21. And outside of work, currently I am climbing. That's my key focus for, I guess, right now. Otherwise, I tend to have different hobbies. Like I've recently completed a pen and ink drawing course, which was really fun. I started a book club with my friends, so I've got that going, and yeah, just enjoying life the best way I could.
Sounds like an interesting one, man. I think it would have been a amazing ride to where you are today, and I think let's kind of start digging into some of those experiences that you have had. Let's
Hmm.
start with this. So, you have worked across a lot of industries, from
Hmm.
finance, healthcare, cybersecurity,
Hmm.
and even government. If
Hmm.
your career was like a Netflix show, like that could
Oh,
have a title of each season be, which one would have the biggest plot twist where you feel?
I guess in terms of the plot twists, I'll just straight up say I think when I was laid off from CIBC, I think that was a pretty big plot twist. If I'm being honest, one day I'm just like working along, I'm just like hoo la la, and then I get what was it? It's like a 4 p.m. meeting in calendar. I'm just like, uh-oh, what's happening? And I go into the meeting, and it's like, oh, sorry, you've been let go. Here's like the package. Here's what you can sign. Blah 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 blah. We're gonna escort you out. So I think if I'm talking about biggest plot twist, I think that would be it. It's kind of like the show getting canceled while you don't expect it. I guess kind of like what was it? Like Firefly. I don't know if you've ever seen Firefly. People say that's one of the unfortunately canceled shows. Yeah, say that's it. But
No, I fully
no
agree.
hard feelings, no hard feelings.
No, I think it makes sense, and I think it that is the most uncertain thing that you can ever expect, because nobody
Hmm.
technically expects it, and it's like
Hmm.
it's always unexpected. So that's really amazing. How did you
Yeah.
dealt with your layoff? Like, how did you kind of cope up
Hmm.
with it? How did you got your next opportunity? How
Yeah.
did you handle it?
No, I think that's a really great question. I think it just depends on your mindset. I think a lot of folks when they get laid off, it's easy to go like, oh, like what did I do wrong? Like, oh, like my life is ruined. But I think for me, the way that I approached it was more like, oh, one door closes, but another door opens. So I really took the opportunity to just relax for a bit because, ever since starting being in the workforce, I never took like a lot of work time off. So it was a time for me to kind of get my life back together. I was like working out like 5 days a week. I was rekindling my connections with my friends. Yeah, I think it just depends on your mindset, how you go through it, and then the way that I landed on my next role was I was trying, and I kind of going back to what I said. I was rekindling my old connections, and one of them I got to chat, and then they introduced me to another person that works at TD, and then through that I was able to land a role, land a job.
That is really interesting, and I think
Hmm.
uh, like it's right to say that your network definitely helped you out
Hmm.
professionally and mentally both, where you
Hmm.
kind of connected back with your friends and kind of got a chance to kind of go, like, experience new things which you would have left out earlier within
Hmm.
your while you were working. But let's go back before kind of you get laid off at CIBC.
Hmm.
You were on the enterprise innovation team,
Hmm.
kind of solving big problems like ESG, insurance, wealth
Hmm.
planning, and more.
Hmm.
How do you even begin designing for something that is so abstract and complex?
Yeah, that's fair. I think one of the things, I guess there's multiple aspects to it, but I think definitely something that comes off the top of my mind is that you're not there alone. The approach that we took during these projects where we would work very closely with our partners, kind of form like a team squad together, and then we kind of go through the design process together. So, a lot of different ways of calling it, but I think easiest is just call it co-creation. So we were able to embed like our sponsors into our process. Sponsors meaning, the people that give us the work. So the people that lead insurance, people that lead ESG, that sort of stuff. So we work with them and ask them like, hey, what do you know about the space, and learn from them. And then as we go through the process together, maybe when we're sharing some of our competitor research, maybe when we're sharing some of our user research, it really helps them kind of understand what's happening and, um, you know, kind of work with us, not like work against us in a sense. Because I think it's easy for a lot of folks in business to be like, oh, like we don't really believe in user research, but by incorporating them into the process itself, it's easy to work together. So I think definitely, building relationships and being able to work with people, I think that's probably what enables a lot of change, yeah, within our projects.
That is really interesting, and I think innovation is a very interesting space in itself as well, because you get to kind of
Hmm.
uh, work on, again, as we talked about, work on again really complex yet ideas which haven't been baked yet, which are half baked, and you're still experimenting, figuring out what that even idea could look like, and then also
Hmm.
kind of figuring out its market fit and how that should be marketed and everything else.
Yeah,
That is really
exactly.
an interesting space to work at. Would you say, like, was that kind of the role where you learned a lot? Because my assumption would be that is the role where you get to experiment a lot as well, right?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it was my first role out of school, if I'm to be completely honest with you. So it was a lot of great learning moments, whether it be, my idealized version of UX, and going from that to, real world working. It's quite different. And then I think in terms of what I learned from the experience, it was a lot of strategy. I was working with a lot of directors, like senior level managers. So I got to kind of learn from them, like what's their priority, what are the desired outcomes, like how do they navigate through different problems, as well as so I guess one like leader or stakeholder management, and the other one was like leadership and facilitation. A big part of my role was facilitating, so bringing people in a room together and then facilitating and then achieving a desired outcome. So I think that's also one of my key takeaways slash learnings from my role, and I think it's helped me really become a better designer. Just because usually it's less about what you know, but who you know and how well you can get people together. So yeah, I really appreciated those moments, learning moments.
Yeah, very interesting, and I think that is I wanna. So this is a good segue to our next question, which is like you
Mhm.
have definitely facilitated a lot of design thinking workshops.
Mhm.
So what's kind of the one of the wildest things that has happened in one of them, and what's the one tip for running workshop that actually work?
Oh man, what's the wildest thing? I don't know if this would be, a wild thing, but I do remember a moment where we had, they were mobile advisors, so people that are on the telephone banking and they help people they give advice to people in terms of how to, use their money. So we had a session with a group of mobile advisors, and after that meeting, someone messaged me saying, "Hey, Andy, I've been at the bank for 15, 20 years, but that was the most fun meeting I've had in my life, or like in my working career." So from that, I was like, oh, this job ain't so bad. So not the wildest in terms of something crazy happened, but wildest in terms of, I guess, helping me recognize that like the work that I'm doing is meaningful, and it does, help voice people's voices that weren't heard before. I think that was another thing. And then what helped to lead a successful workshop was the next question, right? So I think one answer to that is one, like be prepared. And what I mean by that is everything could go wrong during a workshop, whether it be maybe your whiteboarding tool not working, maybe your Teams is down, maybe people aren't showing up. So you kind of have to have a backup plan and then also a backup plan for that. So it's really like you have to have a backup plan for a backup plan for a backup plan, like that sort of thing. And I think what helps kind of keep your workshop focused in those moments where things go wrong is having a desired outcome. So, what do you want to achieve during this workshop? So, as long as you are meeting those desired outcomes, then you can say that your workshop was successful, regardless of what happens. I remember, I forget which project, but there was a project where it was, oh yeah, it was like a blockchain project. It was like six people were supposed to come to the meeting, but only three came. And I was like, "Ugh, like, what are we gonna do? Like, three is not really enough to do a lot of ideation, solicit people to, um, sticky notes. So what I ended up doing was having more of like a round table and conversation with them and asked them about the problem that we wanted to solve as a part of the workshop. So even though it didn't go as planned, we still got all the information that we needed for the project. So it was a success at the end. So I think that's why it's important to have desired outcomes first and foremost, but also, backup plan of a backup plan. But, when all else fails, you can always go back to your desired outcome. And I think that's what could determine a workshop to be successful.
Very interesting. Can you? I don't know if it's possible, but can you give an example of where these workshops could be useful within the design process, and how a young designer in
Mhm,
a company should do it to
mhm,
involve other stakeholders.
mhm. Yeah, I think it's pretty helpful kind of along every step of. I'll just use a double diamond because that's easily understood. I think it could pretty much be used throughout every part of your design process. So it all depends on what your desired outcome is. So let's say, for example, you're just starting the research, you're just starting the work. You could have a workshop on what are our assumptions? What are some of the hypotheses that we have regarding the problem that we're solving? Or it could even be before that, it's like, what sort of problem are we solving? So that's another workshop that you could do. And as you go further down the design process, um, you could have a workshop to go over some of the research insights and ideate based off of that. And similarly, once you ideate, you can have prioritization workshops. And yeah, so like a workshop could be used throughout any part of the journey. And I think what it's really helpful is to just bringing people together because more often than not, there's a lot of silos that exist within an organization. And if you're able to say, hey, developer lead, hey, like, business lead, can we all come together and just chat about it? That solves a lot of those miscommunication and also brings people also feel more empowered because they were able to voice their opinion during the workshop. And on the flip side, it can be like, we already asked you, you said it would work. So it also gives like a level of like accountability to a sense as well. So it really helps in making decisions together in a group, I think.
No, no, I think that is really interesting. And also, another thing I feel is
Hmm.
that other stakeholders also feel in a way that they are part of the decision making.
Hmm.
Uh, and even I know they haven't, like, they are not like 100% or even 50% part, but I think even their small input makes them feel that they were part of making this decision.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I
Mm,
think that's you put it really well. Yeah, they're a part of
mm,
the journey.
mm. True. So let's go to the next question. So obviously you
Yeah.
have mentored uh, a lot of people. You have been
Hmm.
a UX designer. What's
Hmm.
something junior designer think matters that
Hmm.
actually doesn't, and
Hmm.
something they ignore that they should absolutely should not ignore?
So I think this was a problem that I had. Not a problem, but something that I personally went through is, as a UX designer, I've always thought like, oh, I don't need good visual design skills. Like, I don't really need that because people are going to pay me for my problem solving skills. People are going to hire me for my problem solving skills. But at the end of the day, I think having good visual design skills is really important for UX designer, product designer, whatever you want to call it. Just because it's a good skill to have as a designer. Like your work by nature is visual. So if you aren't good at it, like how else will you communicate? It's there's also I forget the exact bias, but also like if things are the aesthetic usability effect. Kind of similarly, if people find something pretty, they're more likely to rate it better or think it's better. So even if you show the exact same wireframe or exact same idea, one's like just done immaculately in terms of visual design, and the other one not so much, people are gonna think the prettier one is better. So that's why I think it's really important for uh, UX designers to study and get better at visual design because it'll open a lot more doors for you. Like for example, if a company is hiring and you only know UX, like you suck at design, like design, then and someone else comes along and they're like, oh, I'm good at UX and visual design, they're gonna pick the person that's good at both. So it all just comes down to like your marketability as well as your ability to tell a story, I guess. Yeah, so that's one side. And I think the other question was like, what skills do junior designers often overlook? Was that it? Okay. Um, and I think for me, this is, also based off of my experience. Um, it's like to be able to think in terms of what the business wants. I think a lot of people hear that, OKRs are important, KPIs are important, but maybe you just don't know or you just can't make that connection between KPIs, OKRs, and your designs. And why I say the business is important because at the end of the day, like no matter how good your design is and it gets developed, how good your dev team is, blah, blah, blah. If your business strategy isn't sound, your business is going to go down. And what that means is you're going to be out of a job. So at the end of the day, I think a lot of designers think like, oh, like I'm a designer, like listen to me, like it's the best for users. But I think it's also important to consider your other users, like your PO or your PM lead, like that sort of thing, and work with them to figure out what sort of impact your design is making for the goal of the organization. I think that's really helpful to know. Yeah.
Very interesting. I think I really like what you just said. I think can be put as a quote like if your business isn't sound, it's going
Hmm.
down.
Hmm.
That is really interesting. And I think I've got a lot of kind of similar of these lines in different aspects from different people. And I've
Yeah.
always had an idea of making like a big post out of it and kind of sell it to the audience who listens. But I think it is really interesting how you put it there on both sides. Like visuals are also important and understanding business, how it works, and kind of relating back whatever you're doing to that, it makes sense as well. And I think I can second that a lot because
Hmm.
uh, I have realized as I'm in the market that people want UX for sure, but
Hmm.
even in interviews, even anywhere you can think of, I'm telling
Hmm.
you, people like the hiring managers, you so call it, like they highly want to look at your visual skills. They're like,
Hmm.
show me good designs that you
Yeah.
made because even if this is my perspective,
Hmm.
may not be true, but I think the reason they do it because they think even if the UX is not 100%,
Hmm.
they can cover that up from their own side.
Hmm.
But visuals, if are not 100%, it is very difficult for them to cover that 100% from their side. That
Hmm.
is what my perspective is.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I guess it kind of all depends on the organization, like, what you value, like what your team looks like as well, right? Yeah.
No, fully agreed. And I think, especially in startup, is where I've seen this because
Mm,
smaller, you are supposed to kind of do kind of a multidisciplinary approach.
yeah.
And I
Mhm,
think that is where I've seen, especially product folks in leadership spaces,
mhm,
they're like, we can still tell you, and we are more on the experimenting phase. So we don't
mhm.
need like extensive research, but we at
Yeah,
least want you are able to understand it and make it very nice.
like look nice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, true. Fully agreed, man. I
Look,
think it is
look,
interesting.
lookism is real.
Fully agreed. Fully agreed. No, very interesting. Okay, so let's kind of go to the next question. So
Yeah.
you have shared your love for like climbing and pushing personal
Hmm.
limits. Has
Hmm.
this mindset ever helped you to kind of tackle a tough design or like a leadership moment?
I guess like how has like continuous learning, like how has that helped me? Like how would you rephrase this question?
Yeah, I would say like even if I think of climbing, it's not a one
Hmm.
time thing you go and do.
Yeah.
It's like you have to push your limits, you have to
Hmm.
work hard, and you
Yeah.
have to do it. For example,
Hmm.
another thing you said, like you after your break, you went to 5 days,
Hmm.
uh, like 5 days a week to
Hmm.
gym. Like you pushed your limits to kind of do whatever you can to kind of indulge your mind. So
Hmm.
does that kind of mindset of pushing your limits has
Hmm.
helped you to kind of helped you through like a tough phase in design when you had? And second, is that
Mm,
something mindset that has made you have like a leadership moment in your corporate career?
mm. Yeah, I don't know. If I'm being honest, I don't know how to answer that. I think, in terms of, helping me through tough moments, like definitely, and I think it all comes down to like growth, I guess, as a person. Like, every time you go climbing, you're growing a little better as a better climber. Every time I go to the gym, you're growing a little better as a, lifter. And I think the similar can be applied to design. Like every project that you take, it's never going to be the same. So how do you approach it and how do you want to learn from it? I think that's what's like really important for every role, like every project that you work on. So an example that I have is I was working, I believe it was similar. It was a project related to advisors transitioning. So if one advisor leaves, what do you do? Like what happens? So for me, that concept of making sure that people feel good during a change, like, I was like, okay, maybe you should be doing this XYZ, but I didn't really know what it was called. But there's a whole specific field related to that called change management. So during that um, project, I really took it upon myself to learn more about change management, like what it entails, what kind of mindset you should be having. So using that, I was able to get through that project and make recommendations on how you can best manage, this change for the advisors. Um, and I guess in terms of a leadership moment, I guess it's like similar. Like when I was promoted to senior designers, as a senior designer, I started to have co-ops, started to like hire them, started to mentor them. So what I ended up doing was I took a look at, how do I want to, like, what kind of manager do I want to be? What kind of mentor do I want to be? So I read books like Making of a Manager. I think was really helpful by Julie Zhao. I read a bunch of Harvard Business Review articles. Um, and then, yeah, it helped me become, I guess, who I am today. I don't know if I answered that question, but
No, I think you definitely did, because I think in today's moment, and I think
Mhm,
how you told how you handled that change management thing was interesting, and I think
mhm.
how you handle that promotion was really interesting. Uh, One thing I do want to follow up with this:
Of
what do you
course.
think a young designer, or like a designer already in the industry who's thinking of transitioning,
Mhm,
getting a promotion or something
mhm,
like that,
mhm.
how they should use this mindset for of growth to kind of
Mm,
for in their favor?
Mindset of growth in their favor. So I think for me, what they can do is, think of ways that you can grow as a designer and also think of ways how you can help your team slash organization, um, like what the organization needs, and kind of cross reference and try to find um what's the like a not a theme, but like something that exists in both worlds. So, like for example, maybe it's a visual design. Like so, maybe your team needs better visual designer, but that's also something that you want to work on because at the end of the day, um, what you can do as a person, it'll help you become a better visual designer, but also it'll also benefit the organization because now they have a better visual designer. And what you could do is also use that to your advantage. You could say, hey, I noticed that, within our team, we don't have good visual designers. So what I want to do for the next year is I want to work on becoming a better visual designer. and you can have a plan to kind of do that, XYZ, how you're gonna meet your goals, blah 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 blah. And you can, more often than not, they have like training budgets and stuff as well. So you can definitely use that, talk to your boss. And when it comes down to like your performance review, or talking about your promotion, then you can say, hey, from since last year and now, I've become a better visual designer because XYZ. And how this helps our team is blah blah blah. We need a visual designer, that can communicate our ideas better, blah blah blah. And using this could be your grounds for promotion. So definitely think about think within yourself on how you want to grow, but also think of what your organization can offer for you slash what they need, so that you could be more valuable within the organization.
Sounds definitely great. And I think I still remember one of my manager gave me this learning when I
Hmm.
was in a very young startup, and he was like, from the very start,
Hmm.
make something he called a brag document.
All
And
right.
he was like, make it, maintain it
Hmm.
every single, like have it like for every single week or every single day, whatever works for you, and
Hmm.
note everything that you are doing that is impacting the business
Hmm.
in a positive way, and
Yeah.
business and yourself in a positive way. And
Hmm.
then whenever we do performance reviews, we talk
Hmm.
about that, like what you have done, and it's easier for you to reference back to that as
Hmm.
compared to things that will be available on the website, because being a startup, it may change every 3 4 months. So we like
Hmm.
have them documented, have all this, have whatever you can document in terms of impact that you create, and show it, and it's
Hmm.
easier for you to kind of use that.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that has been a really great learning for me, at least. uh,
Yeah.
Going forward,
Hmm.
so I think system thinking is one of your standout skills. And
Hmm.
how do you kind of apply that when navigating these cross-functional kind of messy environments, like
Hmm.
aligning with engineering, business
Hmm.
teams, something like
Hmm.
that?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think, to be completely honest with you, like, I don't really think about it on that day-to-day basis. Like, I don't go like, oh, I'm gonna think in systems today. I think it's just kind of, it's like something that kind of permeates within your workflow kind of naturally. So an example that I'll give is, I forget which project. Oh, I'll keep using the advisor project. So what part of the research that we did is, it's easy to think, oh, like it's an advisor project, like let's only research advisors. But we also did was we thought about what other roles. It's really important to have the good transition from one person to another to keep the business from functioning. So we thought, oh, like nurses, like healthcare, because at the end of each shift, they do a transfer of the logs to the next person. So that helps, nurses take care of patients, similar to how advisors take care of their clients. So I think, when I think systems, or maybe it's less systems thinking, but like more divergent thinking. I think it's really important to not just focus on the problem that you're solving right in front of you, but try to think, what else is out there. And I think that's what, in part, systems thinking is all about, like trying to, take a look at the relationship between different parts, and then trying to come up with like a solution, or like a way to describe those relationships. And using those, you can start solutioning.
No, I fully agree. And I think I would say for me as well, it's the same thing. I don't
Hmm.
specially think of it, but I know when I'm designing or when I'm even
Hmm.
thinking of a flow or anything around that, it's
Hmm.
like something is in my brain when I'm even thinking of something.
Hmm.
Uh, But one thing I definitely think, and even I think you kind of mentioned that, like
Yeah.
when I'm actually presenting or collaborating with them, I'm definitely
Hmm.
using this more often than other,
Mm.
because I feel
Hmm.
it is in my understanding, it's a language that they speak and they understand better,
Yeah. Hmm.
as compared to if I say I made this user flow and I
Hmm.
did this, and I think it is going to take a little bit of a learning curve for them to do that. But as
Hmm.
compared to if I talk in terms of systems and system
Hmm.
thinking, it's like
Yeah.
a click and they can understand it faster and better.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's a really great point that you're making. Yeah, speaking the, I guess this is kind of related to like systems thinking as well. Like when people think of users, it's easy to just think like users at the end of the product. But if you start to think users as in people that you work with, people that are in the like the back office, like for example, with the advisors, like people that are coming up with the like how to or like onboarding material. You can think of that. So it really helps you think of what like who and what is connected to what you're working with, who you're working with. And yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yeah, fully agreed. Awesome. So let's go forward. So you you have presented to
Hmm.
kind of your ideas and designs to a lot of C-suite execs, and also led a lot of sprints with high visibility. Uh,
Hmm.
any tips for designers who struggle to tell a compelling story about their work, like how they can actually do that?
That's a good question. So, I think something to recognize is that there's different ways of telling a story. Um, so there's usually when people talk about a story, there's a story arc, like a hero's journey. So that's what usually people associate with storytelling. But that doesn't really apply to all stories. I think there's moments where you need to mix it up so that it makes sense for your audience. And I guess this kind of goes back to, your users not just being the users, but people that you interact with. So when in terms of presenting to C-suite, something that I realized was try to keep it. They are like really smart people. There's a reason why they're in the C-suite. So what they want to know more about is how it benefits their business. Like first and foremost, how does it benefit their business? Because as I mentioned before, at the end of the day, business is what matters. And then if once you have a solid business case, how does it help our clients, which helps the business itself? That's how it usually flows. And then you can talk about all the details, like all the user research, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, I think something to keep in mind when you're presenting to somewhere in the high up, like go straight to the results. Like don't say, here's what I did, 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 and here are the recommendations. Say, here's what we did, here's the context, why we did it, the things that we did, and then say, this is going to bring us $10 million in new business. And then you can start talking about this. This is because of the research that we did. Here's a cool prototype. Here are the next steps. So yeah, I think it all. I guess key takeaway is storytelling. There's no one way of telling it. It all depends on your user, your context, and what you want to do.
I fully agree, and I think as someone who was experimenting a lot in understanding how to write a case study, it was very difficult, because I think I was like, because a lot of times we don't document stuff while
Mm.
designing or while doing a project,
Hmm.
thinking in mind that we are making a case study. We are just doing
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
when we come back to it, like, why did we do this? There was something.
Hmm.
And then it gets very difficult, because you're
Hmm.
looking for a template to fill
Hmm.
everything in,
Yeah.
but that is not how it would work, because that was not how you actually designed it. So
Hmm.
I think that is why when I said brag document, and I think documentation is really important when you are doing anything,
Mhm.
And I think it is something that I feel with the use of AI, you can do it much faster now
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
much better.
Mhm.
And another thing which you just put out is that I really liked what you said is anybody, especially if you are wanted to get hired, I think what you said, tell what you did and what
Mhm.
impact did it create, then
Mhm.
tell more deeper into how you did that, what
Mhm.
crazy insight you got that made you do this or whatever XYZ things.
Mhm.
uh, that is a good way, but again, agreed to the point that it depends on the project,
Mhm.
who is it for,
Yeah.
how big how small is it visual heavy, is it UX heavy, is it just a small feature, is it a redesign, we don't
Mhm.
know, right?
Yeah.
Depends.
Oh, exactly. And yeah, like by showing the results right away, it's kind of like they can not listen to the rest of your presentation, but they got like what they need to know. So I think it's kind of good to think about it from that perspective as well.
No, agreed. And I think I say to people this a lot that
Hmm.
attention is a biggest commodity right now. If you
Hmm.
know how to grab it,
Hmm.
it may be sounding uh, like evil, but that's the reality of the world right now.
Yeah.
If you are able to grab attention, for
Hmm.
you, it is very easy for you to make people listen to yourself, like listen to
Hmm.
what you have done and other stuff. So, uh, very interesting point. Okay, so I have now a rapid fire round, like a really fun one. Uh, just three, four questions that I have. I would
Hmm.
love to kind of have your answers. You can answer quickly, and if
Yeah.
you want to explain them, that's up to you. If you don't,
Mhm.
that's up to you. Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, so the first one that I have, what's one design tool you are experimenting with right now?
So I think right now I'm actually experimenting with Gemini. I just saw some, I think I was on like Instagram or something. Someone was like, Gemini deep research, try it out. So I was like, hey, you know what? I'll give it a try. So, because some of the things that I do as a part of like initial research is I want to take a look at papers and see if there's any relevant papers. Because often some smart people have thought about the problem that I'm trying to solve. So I think Gemini is good because it helps me save time because it's doing this thing. It's looking across however many databases, trying to find papers, trying to find trends, trying to find white papers, like all that sort of thing, and it summarizes it for me. So I think it does save a lot of time in terms of doing the actual work itself. So that's something that I want to like try out more, not just for like passion projects, but for actual work as well.
Interesting. And I think how I would just want to add to this, how I
Hmm.
am and what I'm experimenting with is
Yeah.
also is so I don't like reading a lot. So what I'm
Hmm.
doing, and whenever I want to research about a topic more deeply, just
Hmm.
for work or personal, but I
Hmm.
love listening to podcasts. So I
Oh,
go to Notebook LLM, I
uh-huh.
upload my PDF, it creates a
Hmm.
podcast, and I listen to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got a different learning style, right? So
True,
if it works,
true.
it works.
For sure. Okay. So another question. What's the most underrated UX skill that you think?
Underrated UX skill. Oh, that's a hard one. I know people are gonna say storytelling. People are gonna say like whatever UX design. I think in terms of skill, maybe just being open, like being uh, like having a good attitude. I think I don't know if that would be considered a skill, but uh, if you are working and you're just easy to work with, then you're already halfway in. So I think from that perspective, like people are going to like you more, people are going to work with you, people will be more likely to make amends for you, that sort of thing. Um, yeah, I think for example, like whenever I work with my devs, I could try to keep a good relationship with them. And then more often than not, they'll be like, "Oh, sorry, we can't do this." But if I'm like, "Hey, like, can we please like do this?" Then they're like, "Okay, like we'll like squeeze it in the next sprint," that sort of thing. So it does work in your favor, like more often than not. And yeah, it's nice to be nice to people. So
No, fully agreed. Uh, the last one that I have
yeah.
is, if you weren't in UX, what
Hmm.
would you be doing?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I've always wanted to be a UX designer since I was 3 years old. So I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I think I'd probably be doing probably PM to be honest. Because I think when I look at my back at my schooling, people pretty much had like three different um, career pathways: PM, dev, or design. So I don't like developing. So design's not a thing. So I'll probably go with PM. And during my layoff period, I did read cracking the PM interview, so it did help me kind of get into that sort of thinking, I guess.
That is really interesting, and I think because also there's a lot of overlap between, especially UX designers and PMs.
Hmm.
Less overlap between devs and designers, because
Hmm.
for dev it's a big learning curve,
Yeah.
because you whatever language you have to learn it from scratch, you have to experiment, and you have to,
Hmm.
so it's a big pain in the ass. And I think, but for PMs
Hmm.
it's there is a learning curve, but not
Yeah.
as big as for devs.
Yeah, exactly. I think definitely more transferable. And I think the way like people position product designer is it's like, oh, you also gotta play like a little bit of PM in a sense. So I think it just kind of might be a natural pathway for some.
Agreed. Awesome. The last question that I have for the
Hmm.
podcast
Yeah.
is something of a reflective question.
Hmm.
So, looking back,
Yeah.
if you could give one piece of advice to
Hmm.
yourself at the start of your design career, what would it be, especially knowing the path that you have taken?
That's good thinking because I feel like in a way I haven't really changed much since I started out. But I'd say keep being curious because I think it's easy to fall into the trap once you are in the workforce to think like, oh, I'm safe. Like I don't really have to keep learning. I'm already learning on the job. So I think it's kind of easy to fall into that. So I tell, past Andy, even when you do get a job, keep hustling.
No, I fully agree. But I will say one thing,
Hmm.
that you would be biased to think that you haven't grown.
Mm.
But if you ask from somebody from outside,
Mhm.
like who is not biased, they will
Mm.
say that you have grown.
Mhm.
And it
Right.
is the only difference between you saying you have grown and not grown is you realizing it. That's
Mhm.
it.
Oh,
That is what I will say, right? I think
nice.
I recently realized that, because I
Mhm.
feel as I was trying to find a job, it is a tough market. It was getting very
Mhm.
difficult. I had my low moments, and I was
Yeah.
realizing, what have I done in last few years? Like, have I even grown? And when I
Mm.
actually started to realize it, I realized I have actually grown a lot,
Yeah.
uh, not just in terms of my design skills, but
Mhm.
everything else. And I think
Yeah.
that is something, when I reflected back, I was like, no, I think I'm going on the right track. I just have to
Mhm.
hustle it. And then what you said is something I actually embedded in me,
Mhm.
is that even if I get a job, or even if I
Yeah.
don't get a job, I
Uh-huh.
need to always hustle to learn more and always be curious about things, to make sure
Yeah.
that I also see my improvement of growth as well
Mm.
more.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. Makes sense. Amazing, Andy. I think crazy insights, crazy stories, and I think crazy amount of experiences that you have had. And I think people are going to learn a lot from it. So, again, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast. I'll definitely link your socials in the description for anybody who want to reach out to you. But
Mhm.
again, thanks a lot for taking your time, and thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was a very fun time to talk about myself.
Definitely. Awesome.